misunderstanding economics is a common trend in today's political world. I have two examples that I'd like to apply critical thinking and common sense to, and these misunderstandings are on both sides of the aisle. Recently, our clown-in-chief, President Trump, decided he wants to raise tariffs on China.
Let's say China. 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 China.
The average neocon out there doesn't seem to realize that tariffs are a tax, and that tax gets handed down to the consumer. So, if you're for tariffs on China,
China, China, China, China, China, China, China, China, you take China.
Then you're really telling Walmart you'll be happy to pay more for their goods. Simple. But the next one is a bit more complicated. Universal health care. I'm going to use universal health care as proposed by presidential hopeful Bernie Sanders. The general idea is the government will negotiate lower prices for health care, somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40%. Greece, of course, is the most extreme example of what can happen with universal health care.
A decade of austerity is taking its toll on Greece. In low-income areas like near the port of Piraeus, poverty is more apparent. A long recession is forcing cutbacks. Greeks are having to pay more for necessities like medicines.
Today, total pharmaceutical expenditure is 4 billion, but is split in between the state and people. And so basically people now have to spend 2 billion on pharmaceuticals out of their own pocket. So even though expenditure has been going down, that was not the case for people. People nowadays have to spend more for pharmaceuticals with less income.
Greece invested 8% of its budget on healthcare in 2017, lower than many other EU states. Pharmacies see firsthand how people are affected.
People need much more money now, while their incomes have shrunk significantly.
And then, in many public hospitals, operations are being postponed. There's a shortage of supplies, and fewer medical staff are being employed. That offers people a stark choice of waiting and living with their illnesses or paying for private care. But those fees are often higher than what many people can afford. Outside Athens, many hospitals are short of medical staff. Between 8,000 and 10,000 physicians left the country during the economic crisis. They work mostly in other European countries.
There are too many patients coming in, and there aren't enough staff to treat them. At the moment, we are short of 6,000 doctors, and there are 25,000 empty nursing posts too.
There have been slight improvements. Greece's health budget has gradually increased and inefficiencies are being reduced, but many Greeks have longer waiting times for treatment than a decade ago and pay far more for the medicines they need.
This is all to do with systemic risk posed by having the government completely fund the health industry. If the government didn't have to pay for it in the first place, Greece wouldn't be in the situation it's in today. Instead of the consumer funding a natural market, the government works out a deal for an artificially created market that's bound to fail. The BBC reported in 2017 in excess of £140 billion was spent on health across the UK, more than 10 times the figure that was plowed in 60 years ago. Yet it seems no matter how much is invested, it's still not enough. The NHS is cracking at the seams. Obviously, the economy will affect wages and thus taxes collected and allocated to healthcare in the taxpayer-funded scenario. But wait, there's more. When there is less government spending on healthcare, there is a decline in that entire industry. This means it's more than the social welfare program that suffers, it's the entire healthcare industry because of the systemic risk that comes along with the concept of universal healthcare. When we take these two issues and think critically about them, we can see the flaws. This is what anyone and everyone should do about any political policy they believe will work. Thanks for watching another episode of my critical thinking videos.